Hi, my name is Jared Bello, and this is an episode of Everything Eccentric. Today, my guest is Sean Slippi-Mensah. He is an automobile manager, and he's grown up here in New Jersey for his whole life.
Whole life, yep. Born and raised, yep.
Yeah, we're going to skip all the introductions today or all of the other advertisements I would do because I want to get right into the conversation because to me this is an extremely important thing that's going on right now. If you pay attention to anything going on.
You don't live under a rock, yeah.
If you even have your mind clued into anything, you see everywhere you turn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagrams, everything's just in your face. George Floyd, racism, and then the whole shabam that goes with that. But before we get into that part of the topic, I want to kind of get into a little bit of your background first. So you said you grew up in Marlton?
Yep. So I grew up in a predominantly white suburban area in New Jersey, and I'll be honest with you, most of the racism that I saw growing up was more subtle. Like it wasn't you weren't being called the N-word in school, right to your face in front of you, but it was more subtle things. Like I don't want to put out her name, but I know I had a good friend so I played football. So where I grew up, football superseded race. So if you were good at football, as long as you played within the lines, you didn't break any laws, you had no color, you were gold, because it was a football town. But even with that said, I had a friend that growing up, I know prom was coming around, and his mom, I'm telling you right now, his mom cooked for me, had me over for sleepovers, everything. But when prom came around, and I was talking about who I wanted to go with prom, the kind of racism that I kind of experienced was more like, well, hey, don't you want to go with someone that's your kind, So in their mind, they believe that it's okay, but it's subtle. But as I got older and as I kind of left Marlton, I had to go. I worked in Pensauk and on the border of Camden for years, where we call it Camsauk, and there was you saw much more real versions of racism.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to undermine or say that the other versions weren't in their own way racist, but when you deal with something where it's so blatant and it's so in your face that you can't deny it, it's a much different experience.
Sure. So I know people have told me before growing up that Marlton is a racist kind of place, and you think it's just more of the subtle, I guess you would call that implicit bias. Is that what you call that?
So I would say this. I would say that when I grew up, when I was in high school in Marlton, I went to Cherokee. The percentage of black people in the school was a very low percentage. I could probably name right now, 12 years later, every single black person that graduated with me in high school. But with that said, I personally never felt as though the school as a whole tried to keep me from succeeding or that the teachers treated me differently. I know I have one of the teachers that was my teacher in my senior year. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and even to this day, he's very progressive and very open and just a nice guy. But I really believe this, and I said this to somebody the other day. I said that as sad as it is to say, I think that the baby boomer generation are the ones that are really still harboring it. I don't think that really Generation X or millennials really, they don't pass racism the same way. Now, I'm not saying there aren't racist millennials or racist Generation X, but I just think if you looked at the percentage, I think that it was commonly acceptable for the baby boomer generation to be openly racist.
Sure.
So
that makes sense to me. And how just was it growing around so many white people being obviously a huge minority in the area? How did that take a toll on you growing up? How'd you deal with it?
So what's funny? I think the same way that, and I'm not trying to compare the two, I'm just trying to say that how any person that grows up in a situation becomes accustomed. So the same way I had friends that grew up in Camden where drugs and drug dealing around them was just part of life. So
right.
If you ask somebody from an area, I don't even just say Camden, from a urban area, how was it growing up around drugs? They're I didn't focus on that. I just grew up and I just lived because that's not what they were focusing on, because it just was part of life. So the same way people how was it growing up around all the white people? I'm that was just growing up for me. I don't, and then I didn't realize, you don't realize what you're growing up in until you experience something different. Perfect example, my son, he has video games and he has this. If I took that away from him and I made him live in a situation where he didn't have that, he would appreciate the other things more. Or maybe, you know, if it were something else where I made him deal with it and he didn't have to deal with it, he would be like, oh man, I don't, you know, this is tough. So
if you had come from a place where, say, it's a predominantly black school, and then you went to a white school from there, that probably would have been a lot harder?
It'd have been a culture shock. Because if going from a school, you say if you transferred from like Willingboro to Cherokee, you'd feel like you just went to like the moon. Like it's like it's totally different. But you know, when I grew up in like the elementary school, middle school, high school in Marlton, so that's what I knew. So it was, you know, that was my norm.
So I guess also as a minority, I always try to treat everyone as an individual. I try to treat everyone the same. Not to say I'm going to ignore their background, not to say I'm going to ignore their heritage or etc. But I want to treat people the same. Like I always remember at my aunt's funeral, this guy was talking, and he had lost his wife and his father in the same month, and he was saying that my aunt was the only person that still treated him the same after those things, and like that's what like he appreciated. And so I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but other people, like regardless of their race or their gender or whatever they identify with now, it's like I want to treat them all the same. Like I'm not going to try to, because I think when people try to get cute with it, and it just gets weird. It gets more weird. Yeah. I don't know, and it becomes, the whole interaction becomes awkward.
Right. So you know what's funny is that people, you find out kind of how or what people are about when you take them out of their comfort zone. Like perfect example, like if I came into your neighborhood and you were around your friends, you're going to speak differently than if you came like around an area where it's predominantly black and it's kind of out of your comfort zone. So in my experience, if you catch someone in that environment where they're comfortable, they're going to say what comes natural.
Sure.
And I think that's when you really know what somebody's about. Like I know it was unfortunate, but I actually just saw something today. Me and my wife both watched a TV show, QB1, and there was a quarterback on there, Jake Fromm. We both, hands down, said he was our favorite throughout the series, and they did 2 series, and he was our favorite. So, unfortunately, something came out earlier today where he was communicating with somebody through message, and he said something along the lines of, and I don't want to, I'm paraphrasing, but they should make guns more expensive so only elite white people can have
I heard this, yeah.
Yes, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh. But like you're watching the show, and he's got the camera on him, and he knows he's there, and he's got other black people around him. Like, the guy was the most pure, good guy, but then you get him in a situation where he's comfortable, he's in a private message where he thinks, oh, I can say whatever,
yes.
And he kind of, now, I'm not saying that makes him automatically like that at his core, but you can't ignore the fact that if he felt that comfortable to say something like that, what else? See, this is, well, for me, you know what's funny is that people go, oh, well, he said this, well, you know, he apologized. And then it's the things we don't know that people say. And it's on both sides. Like, this is what you caught him saying. You have no idea what other things he said throughout the years that you have no proof of that got you to this point. So
it's like Bradley Cooper at that country concert, right? It's the very same kind of thing. He let his guard down. He was drunk, maybe, I don't know. But, you know, a drunk man's words or a sober guy's thoughts kind of thing.
Right.
And he let it slide.
Yeah.
And I did appreciate, though, how Brian Dawkins said he would have handled the situation. He said, you know, he would have came up to him and said, hey, listen, man, you definitely messed up. Right. Don't let me ever catch you doing that again. Right. But, like, he did extend, like, an olive branch to him. And I thought that it showed a good character of him to do that, because he certainly didn't have to do that.
No, but I met Brian Dawkins once in person. I was real young. I was pumping gas. He pulled up, got out of a G-Wagon, and I mean, he was as, you know, down to earth as anybody I've ever met. My only thing when you see these things with like athletes is like, especially when they're teammates, like that segues into another prime example is Drew Brees comes out and he puts his foot in his mouth. Now, I openly have shown support for Kaepernick. I think that what he did was exactly the right way to protest when you're in his position. You do something that's going to get attention. You're not being violent. You're not being directly disrespectful to any one person, you know, or you're using, you know, profanity. Right. That in my mind was the perfect way to protest. And I think that people seeing how things are right now, they probably wish the protesting was happening like that.
Right, absolutely.
But the fact is that for Drew Brees to say he didn't support it, or to say I'm not going to support anybody attacking or disrespecting the flag, it just showed a level of unawareness. Now they made like a meme about it. They were joking about it. They put like his Madden rating and awareness was 0. but that's really for me. It's like these people don't realize that like you can't just say something out in left field and think that people aren't going to question.
Right.
Like, well, if this is how you feel about this, and what else you thinking, Drew? And then Mike Thomas goes, and right after he says it, he jumps down his back. A day later, Drew Brees apologizes, and now all of a sudden Mike Thomas is like, oh, okay, all is forgiven. I'm like, are you saying this because he's your teammate and you want to make millions of dollars, or do you genuinely believe that this was a one-off? So.
Well, I heard they had a Zoom meeting today, and they said they tried to love him through it, but it got pretty heated, they said.
I would love to, but they need to release that like they did like the Last Dance for like Michael Jordan. They need to release that like 20 years from now.
Well, Malcolm Jenkins blew up on him too. He told him, you gotta shut the fuck up. But instead of saying those kinds of things, because, I mean, as I told you before we started recording, I've been guilty of not knowing enough about this, where I was never like anti-Kaepernick doing that.
Right.
But I certainly wasn't doing what he wanted, like me, as a white person to do either.
Right.
So that's, to me, just as guilty, really. But I think the people who get mad about it, they just don't get it. They're just missing the mark. Because it's like, it's not supposed to be about disrespecting the flag at all.
It's not at all. Like the flag represents America, but it also represents the system. And that's what people, they can't distinguish that or understand that black people have an issue with the system.
Right.
Now, it's not like if guess what? If the police came out with a national flag and there was something to do with that flag and it was separate from the American flag, guess what? He would have protested that. But there's no distinction. And I saw, I guess it was a meme earlier today, and it said something that was like crazy. Like I read it and I was like, oh, that's crazy. But then you think about it, it's true. And it said, racism is so American that when you protest America, you're protesting racism or something along those lines. So it's like,
it makes sense,
right? It was like it's like how are you so, or you protest racism, you protest as America. So it's like, how are you that attached to racism that you can't detach it from the flag?
Right.
So it's.
I think the way I've started interpreting it is, so Kaepernick wanted people that are really patriotic and maybe veterans or people who have lost people in war, their grandparents, etc., to get them annoyed, and then to get them to realize that level of annoyance they have at him is maybe only a fraction of the annoyance that Kaepernick and other blacks would have about, or people of color would have about them dying by the hands of police disproportionately. And he says, I'm doing this to you on purpose, so you can try to get an idea of what we're thinking every time we see something like George Floyd.
I agree with that. I agree that he was trying to annoy people, but I don't even think it was either current or ex-armed service people. I think that he was trying to annoy white America. And so, I mean, he succeeded. And so I think, like, how when you get into a Facebook disagreement with somebody and you make a good point, but let's say your grammar isn't right, or you say one thing off in your rebuttal, and they know you're right, they know you make a good point, but what they do is they pick out, when you said you're Y-O-U-R instead of Y-O-U-R apostrophe, Y-O-U apostrophe R-A.
Right. They
nitpick and they try to twist what you're really saying to try to deflect from the fact that you're right. Yes. I feel like that's really what it was. Because if you were, I don't know if you remember, but when Kaepernick started taking a knee, at first he was sitting down, and he had a buddy. I don't remember his name, but he had a buddy that was actually an armed serviceman, and he said, hey, listen, how do you think I should do it? He said, listen, the sitting down thing kind of rubs me the wrong way, and he respected him, and he said, how should I do it? So people don't even remember this. Kaepernick went from sitting down to taking a knee out of respect for his friend that was an armed serviceman.
I didn't know that, actually.
That's what I'm saying, is that they don't. When people are trying to paint a certain narrative, they don't want to focus on the things that are going to take away from that narrative, because then it makes the point less valid.
Right. Well, then I think that's the ultimate problem too, especially when white people are criticizing it. It's because they don't want to have to do something. It's easier just to criticize that, to criticize him, quote unquote, disrespecting the flag, so that they don't have to do something different. Right. It's easier to do, and there's really no other way around that to me now. The way I see it, it's like if you're just concentrating on him disrespecting, or to bring it to modern day times here with George Floyd, if you're just concentrating on the rioting and the looting. To me, it's the same thing.
Right.
Now, it's not to say that rioting and looting is good.
No.
Or the hurting of any innocent people is good.
Right. And that's so. I don't. One thing I think that's getting lost in this, and I don't want to make it like a victim type role.
Right.
But like, if you're black right now, and you're not pro rioting and looting, there's certain black people that look at you like, oh, you're not black. You don't support the cause. It's like. But listen, I understand it, and I'm not going to be the one that's going to sit up on a high horse and go, "What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this." But I'm like, at the same time, I'm not going to openly say like, "Oh yeah, that was a good idea to burn down that guy's business. Like that was a good idea to burn this car." But at the same time, people respond differently. So I had I'm real big into football, and I had a friend that made a comment about it, and I told him, I was like, when you're on the football field. There's people where you can do dirty plays to them and they laugh at you.
Right.
People that do dirty plays to you and you do dirty plays to them and they run and tell the ref. There's some people, if you do dirty plays to them, they snap and they attack. Look at the situation with the Browns and the Steelers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like he may have been in the right. Like Rudolph may have been a dick. He might have did but at the end of the day, he snapped. And no one focused on he didn't just say, oh, you know what, after this play, I'm going to do this. Rudolph did something. Now, I'm not saying that made Rudolph less wrong or more wrong, but at the same time, Rudolph wasn't innocent. But you don't see or focus on that. You see and focus on that.
The retaliation.
Right, but at the same time, as a football player and as somebody that has been in that environment and situation, I'm not going to look at him and be like, oh man, you're a horrible human being. I'm like, listen, I think you wish you would have kept your cool better, but I know why you snap, because I've seen players do things that make me want to snap, but then calmer heads prevail and you handle it differently. But who am I to judge how someone else responds to the same situation?
Very true. So a couple more things I want to get into. Mm-hmm. The second thing will be more about the George Floyd thing, but before I forget, as you were growing up, did you have experiences with police in Marlton that were maybe...
So, what's fun, and this is why I genuinely believe, so that most black people have the perception that police as a whole have one agenda, and the ones that don't have that agenda actively are protecting the ones that do have that agenda.
Okay.
Now, I genuinely think that there's two types of cops, and it has nothing to do with their racial preferences or discrimination or how they do it. You get a cop, there's two cops, there may be three, but this is just making it black and white, which I know contradicts everything, but I think that you have a police officer that says, hey, I want to become a cop because I want to help an area, I want to make it safe, I want to serve. And they have options, they have other avenues they could have went, but they chose to become a cop. And I think you have cops that are growing up, they have issues or maybe deficiencies, and maybe life doesn't work. I go to school to be an accountant, it doesn't work, but I can get a criminology, degree and become a local cop or sheriff, a little bit easier. I take that route. Well, guess what? I have power. I have, because I don't think anybody takes a job because they're like, hey, I want to feel like I work for somebody else and I'm a pawn. And people want to feel important in their job. So if you have the job where you can dictate and feel like you run the show, it's gonna, and the ultimate power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts absolutely. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So absolutely. I think that's pretty much what you see. And when you put these people, so say out of 10 officers, say 2 of them are blatantly racist. Let's say 4 of them are the ones the latter ones that they just wanted power. And then, so now you're stuck with 4 good cops. Now, I'm not saying that's how the ratio is, but those 4 that are kind of they're just there for the power, they're going to kind of flirt and kind of be more like the ones that are there that are racist, because the other guys are just doing good. Like you don't really seem like you're powerful when you're just serving, but you really are. But when you're over here, you act like a dictator, and you're like, you're gonna do what I say or else because you're racist. Those two people are influencing more of these other cops than the other. So I think that's a big thing that people don't understand is that's just human nature. If you have a group of people and 4 people are just laid back, just being normal human beings like you and me, you get 4 other people that are kind of like sheep, and then you get 2 dickheads. The sheep are going to follow the dickheads. They're not going to follow the good guys, and that's unfortunately I think what we see. But,
I can see that.
But to answer your question, though, is in growing up in Malden, I didn't experience a ton of it, and that's kind of what, like, when people talk about racism, like I said, for me it was more like the subtle things until I got older and I saw it and I experienced it more in the real world, and I was like, this is real life. I've had officers pull me over, assume things, ask me questions that didn't make sense. I actually had, now to be fair, this is, I feel like a lot of black people, they leave out details when they get into situations. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was on undisclosed road in New Jersey, and me and another car were racing, and we passed by a cop, and I was like, crap. So I dip off, I turn the lights off, and I'm like, I'm just gonna chill, must wait here. Cop must have saw something, pulls over, whatever. So I'm in to paint a picture for you, I'm in a red Sunfire. I'm wearing a bright red bubble jacket. It looks like something out of like a horrendous like late night rap video. And they stopped the car. Get out the car. And I'm like, coach. I'm like, listen, I know it was racist. I didn't think it was that serious.
Right.
So I get out the car, and they're like, face the front. And so I put my hands up because I don't know what's going on now. So like, back up. And so I didn't even realize what had happened until after I turned around. There was 2 cop cars. Both cop cars had 2 people in them, and all 4 cops got out and had guns pointed at me. And I turned around, I was like, oh shit, now here, someone had robbed a gas station nearby.
It's bad luck.
Right. So, could I have been like, oh, you don't putting guns in me, I'm just, I didn't do nothing. Like, I could have played that. And would it have been part true? Yes, but I was in the wrong for street racing. And so they see somebody racing, they see somebody pull off, they see somebody turn the lights on. That's suspicious activity. Now, do I fit the profile? Probably. What did they say he was? Like, he was an African American male, medium height, whatever. I highly doubt they said he was in a bright red car wearing a bright red jacket. So if I really wanted to be that guy and press the envelope, I'd have been like, is this really necessary, you pulling the guns on me? But this is one thing that I wish, now, we shouldn't have to, as black people, to abide, like, play, but at the same time, I do wish that at times we just like chill out. Like, I see the videos, the kids, like kids are just disrespectful. Like, if I don't care that the cop is asking you questions. Now, if the cop starts roughhousing, like, I'm as a father, like, if I see my son in a video and the kids are rough and the cops are roughhousing him, we got a problem. Like, if the kid didn't do nothing, but if the cops are asking my son questions, like, son, what's your name? And he's over here like, I ain't giving you my name. Like, the end result, I'm gonna deal with the cops. But guess what? When I get my son in the house, I'm gonna smack the shit out of him. Be like, you are respectful to adults. I don't care if it was a cop or something like that. Now, you can be like, oh, I didn't have to give him my name. But it's like, why are you going through the trouble of creating tension? And I feel like I see that more than I would like to, because I feel like you can't ask somebody to come to the table and be better, and you're not at least willing to do something. Now, I'm not, after everything that's happened over 400 years of slavery, the civil rights movement, racial discrimination systematically. Now, I don't think that black people should be the ones that need to take the first step, but at the same time, we can't sit back and say we're not willing to take any steps. You change everything and we're not doing nothing. So I feel like there has to be some sort of...
That brings me to 2 things here now, too. So I think one of the big things that happens in interactions is both people of color and white people, they have their preconceived notions
Right.
about what they're going to be like. And then sometimes it's like if you've had bad experiences, and maybe so a person of color will think a white person, oh, they're just going to hate me, or they're going to be racist towards me. Right. And they kind of bring that to the interaction. And maybe a white person comes in and talks to some black folks, and they're like, oh, they're going to be like this. They're going to have all these other negative kind of connotations, right. And they both bring them together, and it's just not a good mix. And then,
right.
As compared to just even today, as I walked in here with you,
right.
It's like you have just like a very calm, cool energy, and so to me, I didn't get any of that at all. And it was
right.
like it just immediately, I was just comfortable, and that was it. And so I never even thought about it. Now, right. It's not to say that those other kinds of people are guilty or not, but it's like, I do agree, everyone can do better. And this is a good point here too now, because I get in trouble for saying this, because I do know, especially with this issue right now, with Kaepernick and with white people in particular, it's up to us to do better. That's the main point of emphasis.
Right.
That white people should do better.
Right.
Right? And we need to speak up, try to get police reform, try to work on legislation, just to show that we care.
Just to take a step forward, right?
Yes. And then, but if I don't agree with everything that someone says, they kind of put me into I'm not with you anymore. You're not an ally. I can't talk to you. This is what happened to me today.
Yeah.
Because I said what you just said. And I get it. I shouldn't even bring it up. I shouldn't even end the conversation with,
you know what's funny?
Like, people of color can do better too. They just hate that.
Yeah, they don't.
And maybe it's my fault. But
you know what's funny? It's on both sides. So there's things I'm saying that black people can be like, oh man, no, why are you saying that? Nah, you playing in it. It's like, listen, there's certain things that for things to get better. There's a lot of things that white people need to tell other white people to make things get better.
Sure.
But there's things that black people need to be real. Now, the one thing that annoys me is when they bring up like, oh, black on black crime. Like, oh, will you address that? Like, the majority of crime that happens in the world happens amongst people of similarity. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's like white on white crime is not a thing. Like, you don't hear anybody say white on white crime. But more white people kill more white people than black people kill black people. Mm-hmm. But yet, they don't want to focus on that. And it's like, when you say stuff like that, it's a cop-out. And I feel like that's back to the whole, when you're trying to, micromanage the debate and deflect. But at the same time, if I tell another black person, and like I said, like I'm in the car with my boy, we get pulled over. The cop asks him for his license and registration. And the first thing, so the cop has not said anything racist yet. He hasn't done anything. All he did is his job. And then he says, license and registration. And then you go, for what? I don't got to show you nothing. So it's like, when the cop goes away, if I tell my boy, like, yo, why are you being a dickhead? Like, give the guy his information. And then if he's wrong, like if you play it cool and now he's a dick or now he's wrong, guess what? You're good. And that's, that's what's funny is that that's my biggest issue with what happened after Floyd was murdered. I honestly felt like, now I don't know if you're
I was right about to ask you this.
Yeah, so as a married man, if me and my wife get into an argument and she says something that I don't agree with, there is a very, very small window where I can be right. If anybody that's married knows, the window of opportunity to be right is like minuscule. Because as soon as you say something stupid or you try to whatever, guess what? The window's gone. And I genuinely feel, I still think that this is a prime opportunity for us as a country to work on our effed up issues. But I feel like the rioting and the looting, as much as I understand it, I feel like we're saying too much. We're telling the cop before he has a chance to fully put his foot in his mouth. We're giving him the opportunity to justify it. Mm-hmm. So why I can support the cause, and I understand that sometimes you gotta be violent. Like people, I heard someone say like, "Oh, well, violence doesn't solve anything," and then I was like, actually, every huge, if you think about it, every huge transition in the world happened because of violence. Hitler, World War II, slavery, the Civil War. Like if you really, the Revolutionary War. All big transitions happen because of violence. But at the same time, is when you initiate violence, I genuinely believe that it's much easier to support when I don't want to say the enemy, but let's say the target is the person that is in the wrong. Like when I don't really watch the news, but when I hop on Facebook or whatever and I see a black owner standing outside his business that he saved his whole life to start, and the glass is all over the place, and people are trying to tell me, oh, the riots, get the looting is just part of it. I'm like, isn't he the one that you're trying to go to war for? Isn't he the one? So like, so that's where the looting and the rioting is tough for me. Like I'm not gonna be critical of it because I understand the big picture, but at the same time, like if someone was like, do you support this? I'm gonna be like, no, but like Chris Rock said, I ain't like, remember with the whole OJ thing, he said, I ain't saying I want to kill her, but I understand. Like, it's just what it is.
I get it. But take me back here. So when you first see this video of George Floyd and being murdered, what goes through your mind? Like, what do you feel at that point?
The first time I didn't even watch it all. Like, I got like 2 minutes in, and I was like, guaranteed kill him. And I was like, the man's sitting there telling you I can't breathe, and the guy's just sitting there. And I don't see how that would bother me the most about that situation. And this is why black people are so outraged. So you see this video, you know how usually when you see a police shooting of an unarmed black man, you almost immediately have people saying, well, what did he do?
Yes.
They immediately, without knowing any other facts, they automatically try to defend it. No one was defending this video. Like
no one was. Yes.
Nobody. Like my most radical, off the wall friends that are like, every police shooting is justified. Even they weren't like defending it. So you have to ask yourself, this video was public from the gate. No one's defending it. No one's saying that this was justified.
Indefensible, really, if you ask me.
It took people gathering, calling up, and doing all this to get him arrested. Now, if you have a someone that you're suspicious of doing something and you arrest them, that's not to say you can't release them, but at least if you arrest them, you're saying that you have enough evidence and proof that something's going on to detain them. Let's say, even say detain. It took days for them to detain someone that for 5 minutes stared into a camera and killed a man. Forget his color. He killed the man on video, and it took 5 days.
You think that was police privilege, or what was it?
That's what I'm saying, is that the system is so jacked up that, I don't want to make a joke about it, but do you remember the whole Dave Chappelle skit with the R. Kelly, when it was like, he's like, oh, the only way I believe it was R. Kelly is if he got his holding his license, his mama's there saying it's him. I see the video of it. Like, it was like, it takes, even then, that's pretty much what it was. And they still waited. And then it took rioting, looting, which this is another reason why it's hard to really say you're anti-looting if you're like a black person. It took looting, rioting in multiple states for them to get the other three. Right. It's like...
Well, I think a lot of this is happening because we have no distractions right now. We have no sports, we have no bars, we have no restaurants, no concerts, no festivals, no nothing.
Right.
So all eyes are on this right now.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, it's actually a good thing that all eyes are on this because it's forcing everyone to take a look at it.
What if ask yourself this. Imagine, so there was a pandemic. So there's a worldwide pandemic. This took away from that. So even during a worldwide pandemic, this still took spotlight. Imagine if there had been one or two other distractions. Say the NFL had something going on, or people, like there was like, oh, we're opening stuff back up, and then this kind of swept through the crack. What if this didn't become national news? This guy would not have been arrested. Like, if you look...
You don't think so?
He had multiple other instances.
18, I think.
So if you had, like... Do you think that police force, if they didn't get pressure from everyone and their mother, if they may have, like, internally smacked them on the hand and said, hey, don't kill any more black people till Tuesday. It's we're trying to not meet the quota in one. But it took national backlash.
It did.
For them to press charge. Now here's another thing: is that a lot of black people we're not like, hey, we won, because I saw Zimmerman get off. I saw other police officers that have killed other. But I don't want to call them innocent because I don't want to start that. But I've seen other people with situations similar to this get off. So, what do you think happens if they have a trial and they go, oh, they try to say, something. I don't even know. At this point, nothing would surprise me. They might say, oh, they try to blame it on COVID. Like, oh, he died from COVID. Like, nothing would surprise me at this point. If he is found not guilty,
that'd be messed up. And to me, the whole issue is the police chiefs and the mayor of that town's fault for even having that guy in the position to make that blunder. Exactly. Right? Like, a good leader has to take more than his fair share of the responsibility or the credit, or blame, and less than his fair share of the credit. And they just didn't do that. No. And they really, really dropped the ball. And I heard that police department also, they had a lot of racist practices about like weed arrests, I heard too. And they actually had to address that. And I'm not sure if they were in jail or whatever happened, and maybe they had to release people, but it was actually like a pretty absurd statistic that they were doing that.
So that's like a whole nother segment, a whole nother thing. That police, first of all, I saw this and I had to read it like 4 times because it didn't even compute. So Minnesota, the state, filed civil rights charges against Minneapolis, the police department.
Did they really?
And I was like, so what? Like, it did, like, I understood it, but I was like, it's like saying New Jersey is filing police charges against Evesham, civil rights charges against Evesham Police Department.
Okay.
And I was like, how does that work? And I'm thinking, like, if this goes through, this has changed. This is, like, if your state can hold your town's police officers,
I think it's a good thing.
Oh, it's a great thing. But see, this is my thing, is like, you can't just do it to be a publicity, like, because like,
that's real.
A black person like me read that, and I'm like, this is next level. Like, I'm thinking, like, this is a game changer. But like, if it's like, all right, cool, they found that they did it. We're gonna suspend the commissioner and fine people. Like, then it's not gonna. But like, if they find that this happened, and say the state comes down and says, okay, this person, and like 40 people lose their job, some people go to jail, that's the kind of thing that will change. Like, I'm a father. You have a kid. The kid goes to grab for the bottle. He goes to grab for the bottle. I tell him no. He goes to grab for the bottle. I tell him no. If all I'm doing is saying no, he's going to keep grabbing for the bottle. If he goes to grab for the bottle and I slap his hand, he may not get it the first time. I may have to slap his hand twice. Guess what? If I spank his butt, he ain't grabbing that bottle no more. Sometimes the punishment has to be extreme enough where the behavior is deterred. If you as a police, so I'm a police chief in racist town, East Jabumba, and we've been doing racist stuff for decades. I see Minneapolis Police Department, half the people go to jail and the rest lose their job. Maybe we need to rethink this one.
I think those other 3 guys did actually get arrested. I'm not sure what they were charged with. Right. I think they also have been charged with murder too, because I feel like if 3 black men would have watched or participated in any way of another black man killing a cop, they'd all 4 be charged with murder.
And been found guilty by Tuesday. It'd have been like, happened on Friday, guilty by Tuesday.
To me, fairness and equality begins with sentencing, with a fair judicial system, and to me that would be fair.
That's the biggest. I said this, I don't know, umpteen incidents ago. Like, I'm umpteen innocent, not unarmed black men killed incidents ago. And I said, if this person gets off, it's just going to further support this behavior. If like I said, if they don't think that there's any punishment for the activity, no one at any level, but from baby to adult, no one is going to stop doing something if there's no punishment for it.
Yes.
So,
I mean, to me, what should be being bombarded into the police's minds is to use the least amount of force necessary. That's what should be bombarded into them all day, every day, if you ask me. And I think, like, these incidents, I think racism plays a big part, but I don't think it's the only part. No. I think it's also can be abuse of power. I think it can also be just a bad cop. I think it can also be discrimination against the poor. And other times it is racism. But I think, and this is another thing I've been like ramboasted for saying that. They said, "Oh, no, you're just an idiot." Because it's just all racism.
On both sides are saying truth.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, listen, I'm trying to make some differences here, but I get roasted from every which angle sometimes, and I'm like, I'm trying to be on the side here, and it's like I think all those issues need to be addressed. Because I said, say hypothetically we get rid of racism, which I don't know if we'll ever will, but it's like say we do, and then a cop kills a person of color just because they're a bad cop, and then it's like back to square one. But it's like if you really see, okay. Like it's certain, and when I say this, I think people think that I'm trying to take away from racism as a problem,
right.
Like make it less of an emphasis.
No,
so it's like no, like they all need to be emphasized.
Right.
Racism is like the topic of the day right now.
Right.
But those other things still do need to be addressed to me.
Right. So I mean, I feel bad that I don't remember the gentleman's name, but I know that there was a shooting, and it was a female cop. The guy was outside of the car. She claimed that he went for a gun. And she shot him. I'm pretty sure that she got off. And I feel bad because sadly it happens so often that we almost forget like how many who. But the punchline for me when I saw it, I was like, I genuinely believe this female. And it's not because she was female, but I'm saying this individual female was not cut out to be a cop. Like she panicked. She didn't have the ability to de-escalate the situation effectively. And her instinct was to grab her gun, shoot it. There was no, pulling the gun, de-escalating. Hey, get down on the ground. There's no press. Like perfect example. So let's say that Floyd's killers were not racist for argument's sake.
Right.
He was on the ground for 5 minutes with 4 people holding him down, or let's say 5 total cops. Let's just for 5 people can't get one man into the back of a car. Like
it's unacceptable, right?
It's
no matter what you look at it.
Here's the door to the cop car open already. He is on the ground right behind the cop car. Like if you are not trained as a unit where 2, no less 5 people can't pick the handcuffed man up off the ground and put him in the back of the car, even if they aren't racist, which to kind of just support your point, it's they're crappy cops. And that's not to say all cops are crappy, but if you can't do certain, like perfect example, you want to be a professional football player. Guess what? Say you want to be a quarterback. If every time they blitz you, you panic and you throw the ball into the stands, guess what? You're not really built to be a quarterback. Right. And we have no problem. It's funny. We have no problem telling people in other professions, guess what you stink. Like if you're in sales, and I work in a sales environment. This is the number they expect me to hit at the end of the month. Here's where I'm at. If I'm missing that target on any kind of frequent basis, or if they see when shit gets rough that I don't come up, guess what? My job has no problem telling me I'm inadequate. Why is it that a police officer can show multiple times that he or she is not adequate for the job, and they go, oh, it's a tough job, and
right.
Quick thinking. And it's like, guess what? Every job's got quick thinking. I'm not saying that every job is life threatening, but every job has something in it where you got to be able to be on your toes. If you're not built to do whatever that is, maybe that's not the profession for you.
I agree with that 1,000%, and I think some of this comes down to they need better training. They need better gun training. They need to get them, because right now it's for the amount of power you get as a police officer, right. It's really not that much work to become a police officer. There might be a 4-year degree to be a trooper, a 2-year thing in some municipalities, but for the amount of power you get over the people, that's not very much time.
Right.
And I feel like it should be pushed further. Like like Navy SEALs in the military, for example. Like, you really
Right.
got to be awesome in what you do
Right.
to be a Navy SEAL. And maybe that's what we need cops to be more like.
But you know what's funny that you said, and it's actually the opposite. So, and I'm not to say that what you're saying in logic isn't right, but cops get, and I really wish I could remember the exact numbers, but I've been told this and I've seen this, and if there's a special, I don't know if you've ever seen it, it's called the Patriot Act. It's on Netflix. Cops get somewhere, it's like 128 hours of, I'm going to say the number is coming to mind, of firearms training to 6 hours of de-escalation.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay. I didn't know that.
Now if my numbers are wrong, I apologize, everybody. But essentially, the punchline is they spend exponentially more time training police officers how to use a firearm than they do how to de-escalate a situation when you don't need one. And then there's even like third-party companies that teach like Gestapo, like
yes, you're right about this.
tactics to these police officers. And the way that
they love them.
Oh, they love because they teach them to see a threat before it's there and to react. Now, I understand the mindset. Like if I'm a police officer, I have a family. I'm gonna get home to my family. If you're going to stop me from getting home to my family, that's your ass.
Yes.
Now, the problem is that when you assume that every single interaction is one of those people, some people they may just be panicked. Like I'm a grown man. I'm an adult. I don't carry drugs. I don't do drugs. I don't have firearms in my car. I don't drive around with anything in my car that's illegal. If a cop pulls up behind me as a grown adult man that follows the law, I'm nervous. I can only imagine someone that's doing something illegal, how they feel.
On edge.
Right. Now, it may not be a firearm. Like say you're an 18-year-old kid and you got a bag of weed in the car. Now, we could debate about, weed's illegal, you know. If you're breaking a law, I'm not trying to say, you should get a pass, but at the same time, if you approach somebody in a car that has weed in it, like it's Rambo in the car, and they got the 50 caliber, in the back seat, I really don't think that level of aggression is justified. And I feel like when they see certain people and when they talk a certain way, that's immediately where their mind goes to. Like there's a level of aggression that just kicks in because that's how they're trained.
Well, I mean, you know this as well as me. There's probably cops that will say the right things in public, but once they get a few whiskeys and a few scotches in there, they'll probably go right to that mentality, and they're like, you know what? We're the good guys. They're the bad guys, and sometimes you got to get them before they get you. But I think that's kind of the culture that has to end. And to some of the police force's credit, whether it was Camden or Miami, they had the right idea, I think. They didn't try to fight violence with violence. They said, listen, we know we've messed up. We ask for your forgiveness. We'll kneel with you right now.
Right.
And as far as I know, that worked.
You know what's funny? Those are the areas. So Camden is one of the most violent places in the U.S. Yet all it took was both sides listening.
Yes.
And communicating.
Using their heads.
There was now, to my knowledge, to the date, there was no rioting, there was no looting.
I don't think there was,
Right, so.
But I think that mentality of like the good guy versus bad guy, I think the cops need to screen more for just people who are going to err towards nonviolence, err towards non-aggression. And I think that as a change of culture, as a change of mindset. And I also think the blue wall of silence thing is a huge problem too. And maybe that's what stopped those three cops from saying something to Chauvin or whatever his name was, right? It's like, because you would think they would want to say, listen, you're killing this dude, like stop. He's already apprehended.
Right. So, you know what's funny? And this is a perfect example. So, as a black man, the blue wall of silence is like my mortal enemy, like in all essence. But as a human being, I can look at it and say, we as a society look down and degrade snitching on any level.
Yes.
When you're a little kid, they tell you snitches get stitches and end up in ditches. Like it's from when you're a child. No matter what you do, like you're not a cop when you're a child. It's just something we don't tattletale. So as a culture, as a society, we telling is bad. And then unless you become a cop, we want you to tell on everybody. So it's like I don't agree with cops protecting other bad cops, but we as a society need to stop acting like if you expose wrongdoing, like if it's something that's going to endanger someone's life, you got to get past this whole tough guy, oh, you're snitching. Like perfect example, like 6ix9ine, the rap artist.
Oh, yeah.
He is internationally known as being like the symbol for snitching. Like there's memes, and rightfully so, maybe in his situation or whatever. But like then even with him, like the people that were trying to kill him or to go after him were like, when you read the details, I was like, I'm not saying I would have protected him either, but at the same time, no one cares. Once you tell you're a snitch, it's
right.
negative.
I think part of this just speaks to social pressure too, because it does take some balls to go and like stick your neck out and do something against the norm. And I think that's something that, regardless of what social group you belong to, there is, whether it's a workplace or whatever, they all have their codes. And it takes a lot of balls to kind of speak up and stand and do something different. And I think, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy for police to do this, because like, it's going to be hard. And I think people right now they'll say, well, they've screwed up so much, it doesn't matter. They have to. But it's like, no, it does take some courage. And I know a cop can be a thankless job at times too, but it's like you signed up for the job, though.
Right.
So it's like you signed up, and so you got to take what comes with it. It means like maybe now you got to err towards nonviolence. Maybe it should be labeled as more courageous to speak up and say something, because I think that is what is more courageous. It's always more courageous to speak up against the crowd than it is just to be one of the sheep with them. Right.
But like I said, in that group, you get 4 guys that are like good guys, but they just kind of go with the grain, and the sheep easily manipulated. You know, that we need more that do the right thing kind of guy. But I mean, it's easy to say, hey, we want every single cop to be, this all-American, blue-collar guy that, follows the rules all the time. And, but, at the same time, I'm a realist. Now, if we're doing a better job of vetting them and doing what we're supposed to do, and then the cops make change, and then you start to see our black people are doing X, Y, and Z and taking advantage of it, guess what? When they convert and they start going back to their old ways, I honestly believe the system has to be what changes first. But, and I was thinking about, I'll be honest with you, I was watching the George Floyd service this morning, and I was listening to it at work, and I was like, the people that were talking, they didn't move me. Like, they were saying some good stuff, but I felt like the Al Sharptons and the Jesse, like they were using it as a platform to just,
Probably.
I'm like, we need a Malcolm X. And I say this, nothing against Martin Luther King, but we need somebody, and I don't think that Martin Luther King would be respected in today's environment because he's too passive.
Right.
As sad as it is to say, but I think a Malcolm X right now would be respected enough and listened to where people go, all right, I'm gonna give that a try.
I think it'd be a great person to have in the community, certainly. And I know, like Martin Luther King Jr. said, our riot is the language of the unheard. So he does get it. I mean, he didn't condone violence or anything, but he got the frustration, he got the anger, and he understood how it can boil over sometimes.
Right.
And so I wanted to also talk with you about what I've been hearing, like when I posted some of my videos, where I said people that are basically complaining more about the riots and the looting, they're basically telling on themselves about what they really think is important. Like, they don't really care as much about Black lives because they're screaming and yelling more about the riots. And they say, no, I care. Everyone I know cares, they'll say to me. I'm like, well, actions are the biggest indicator of what you truly think and feel, so you can say whatever you want to me. But, I'm watching what you're doing.
Right. So,
and people just don't get it.
If you, so people... There's certain people, for example, my wife is not a big social media poster. So if she doesn't post about either situation, I don't go, oh, you don't care about this, you don't care about that. That's just not her MO. It's fine. But if you see somebody and they post pretty regularly on social media, like the majority of people do, and 10 posts are about the riots, and 1 post is about George Floyd, you have to ask yourself,
I don't even think they realize it though either though.
No, they don't.
Because I think I might have been one of these people at the time myself.
Oh, I made that one post last week. You see right there? I said that was bad, and then I went on a tangent for the rest of the week.
And then you saw that a lot, didn't you? And I saw it a lot too. And some of the pushback I was getting on it was, oh, this is a black community problem. And I was like, you see that you're missing the point, I said. And you'd be surprised how many people were saying this to me on my...
Oh, no.
I put it up there and they're like, this is a black person's problem. I'm like, well, they're asking for our help. Why is it so difficult to recognize it's an issue and want to help them? But they kept on wanting to push it back and say,
right,
it's their problem. Why aren't they marching when blacks kill other blacks? Or why aren't they doing this? And I'm like, they're all problems too, but this is not the point. The point is, why not try to help in this area? Because to me, if you solve the issue of blacks being disproportionately killed by police, that stops it all. Like, it stops all of this nonsense, right? So why don't we put our attention and our anger towards that? Because it seems like a better place to put our anger, to me. And to me, as a problem solver, that's the best way. And like a humanitarian way too, of course. But people just, all I got was a bunch of pushback about it.
So when you tell people that a group that they identify with is wrong, the natural reaction is to defend it. Like you see it in every, so perfect example. So I use sports. So say there's a group of Eagles fans online and they're saying, we're going to the Super Bowl this year. And, you know, they're right out the gate, you know, and then so somebody that's a Cowboys fan goes and says, you know, oh, Eagles fans are idiots. You know, you guys talking about going to the Super Bowl and it's the preseason. And they're attacking Eagles fans as a whole. Naturally, those Eagles fans that are not saying that they're going to go to the Super Bowl are going to be like, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Eagles fans are the best. Now, they honestly think that these other guys are idiots.
Right.
But because they associate with that group, their natural reaction is to defend it. Now, there are some people, and I've seen this even with football, they'll be like, those guys are idiots. Don't pay them no mind. Like, you know, we're coming. So there are those people, but the majority of the people will say, all Eagles fans, you know, you guys are, you know, kept, and it's a natural reaction that when you assimilate with the group, that it's like being in a gang. Like, if you come at my guy, you coming at all of us kind of mentality. And so when you tell a white person that, guess what, white people have a problem, you guys are being racist as cops towards black people, the initial response is defense. You know, because that's just how human nature is, to defend your stance, because you're what? You assimilate, you associate with that group. Now, if they were like, imagine, I mean, this sounds funny, even though it's not a funny situation. Imagine if they came out and they said, Irish cops are racist, but not Italian cops, not German cops. You may see Italian cops be like, oh yeah, that's one. Oh my, like, because they're not associating them with that group. Yes. Now, of course, we don't differentiate like that, you know, which is funny. Like, if you, this is another part of the systematic racism, is that perfect example. Like, when you see someone of dark skin color, if they're not Spanish, like because there's some Dominicans and some other Spanish groups that are dark skinned. If you see a dark skinned person, they're black. But even I have a friend now. My wife is part Italian. If you call an Italian person white, there's some Italians will I'm not white, I'm Italian. That would be like me saying like I'm not black, I'm African. Like, it's like, and it sounds crazy, but it's, you know, but it's true. Like, black people and Africans are different. But yet, if you said that to a white person, they would look at you like you got three heads. But there's an assimilation of a group that defends at all costs, and that's just natural, you know, human nature. That's a big part of the problem.
I'm glad you mentioned systemic racism too, because I wanted to ask you, how do you think that has affected you, and how have you kind of broken the mold maybe, and, you know, become successful?
Right. So when I was younger, I was not successful at getting out. So. But for me, it was in the form of traffic tickets. Now, it's a way, I would much rather deal with traffic tickets than having the cops kneel my neck. So I don't even try to, So, but at the same time, I've been to traffic. Like, I've been into cars that go not so slow for many years. And I've been in traffic court in like so many towns. Like I if I made it like one of those like been around like the on a map, like there's a good number. So when you're in traffic court, as crazy as it sounds, you see like, so say you're in Morristown. I don't care if it's Morristown, Evesham, Pennsauken. When you're in traffic court, you see a large majority of minorities and people, and it's sad just to say, the white people that are in traffic court are not like yourself. They're not. I'm not saying there's none, but like if I'm in traffic court and I see you walk in, 9 times out of 10 you have a lawyer. You're up first, and it got downgraded, and you were out of there. For me, now it took me years because sadly I went to traffic court so much. I started listening to what the lawyers were saying. I started saying it to the prosecutors in the prosecution room, and I was saying to myself, like I stopped having lawyers. Now I've had to get a lawyer to try to get out, but then I was like, so wait, I paid you $700 to walk into this room because hey Bob, hey Joe, and
that's exactly what they do.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, can we do this? Yeah, sure. So then I'm like, hey Joe, hey, can we do this? Yeah, okay, thanks a lot. And it was, I just saved myself $700. But all these minorities, all these people that didn't have, unfortunately, the experience that I had or didn't have that knowledge, cranking over that. Like, perfect example, unsafe operation. If you are in New Jersey and you're speeding, you make illegal turn, they hit you with the speeding ticket, whatever. When you go into court, it's like clockwork. They would tell, hey, well, we can downgrade this to unsafe operation. So now you're thinking, oh yeah, it's no points against me, cool. Unsafe operation, ballpark, it was like $250 ticket plus a $250 surcharge plus court fee. So your speeding ticket's $80. You leave out of there with a $570 ticket, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, you won because you didn't get any points.
Right.
And it's like, did you win? Maybe if it's like your third speeding ticket, maybe your insurance is going to go up. But there's people that it might not be their best solution, but they just hit you with it. So what had happened, I'll give you a perfect example. So I was probably about 24, 25. I lived in, I guess technically it was Clementon. I want to say it was like Blackwood Clementon Road. There was a Friendly's in the front of our development. And I kid you not, I did the distance. It was 0.43 miles. 0.43 miles from that Friendly's to my front door. So a friend of mine, we were coming back from the club, and I wasn't drinking. I was not drinking that night because we really were not like heavy drinkers going out. He dropped me off to my car, went 0.43 miles from that Friendly's to my front door. I got pulled over. And so the cop gave me a careless driving ticket. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Like, so I get out my car, I'm walking to my house, get back in your car. What? I'm like, okay, cool. So he's like, oh, what, why are you driving like that? I'm like, driving like what? Like, my car didn't go over 35, 40 miles per hour. And, he's like, oh, so he gave me a ticket. I went to court. I'm telling you right now, to this day, I think there's, if someone said, name like your fondest victories in life, like there would be like sports victories, but this court is up. So I watched, and what's funny is it was all because I had the knowledge, which sadly a lot of black and minority people don't have. But they tried to muscle me into accepting this ticket. We got you on video. We got this. We're gonna bring it in, and I was
leaning on you,
leaning hard. So the prosecutor, they bring the cop in. They bring a backup cop who says he was. I'm like, there was one cop car, you weren't there. So leaning, you better take this deal or else unsafe operation. No, I'm good. So this is why there is hope for the system if the right people are in the right place, because that judge was fair. That judge sat there, and
that's really important.
If that judge had not been fair, it may have been totally different. But that judge was like, whoa, what did he do that was careless? Oh, he came out Friendly's and made a right, and he didn't stop. Is there a stop sign there? Well, no. Well, why did he have to stop? Well, he could have hit somebody. Was there any traffic? Well, no, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, so he didn't stop where there wasn't a stop sign. He made a right when there was nobody else. Oh, well, he was speeding. Well, you didn't write him up for speeding. How fast was he going? So, and literally the cop was like, you're wrong. I've never seen a police officer so mad. Like him and the prosecutor were I saw the steam coming from their heads. People, I swear, you'd have thought I was like OJ. Like I just beat like a murder. Like people were like, I had one guy come up to me in the parking lot. He's like, I just want to let you know that was awesome. Like it was, but like sadly, as cool as a story that is, I was one person that day. There was probably 400 other people that just on to the next one.
Well, I think that's why this is so important for white people to hear, because a lot of them just don't know, or then they don't take the time out of their days to even examine it, to even talk to people, to have different experiences. So they really don't know. And people tell me, oh, they must have done something wrong, they must have done this, must have done that. They just say what the cop would say. And it's like, no, like I've talked to a lot of people, they have some horror stories, you hear them. And if you listen, you hear them. But also, people have selective hearing sometimes, and they can hear what they want to hear.
Right. You know, and I definitely, I think that I've been lucky. I mean, you know, my parents, you know, did a lot to put me in an environment where I was removed from a lot of the things that a lot of my friends have had to deal with, of both, you know, white and black. I have white friends that have had experiences too. So that's it. Ironically, people associate that this is only a black issue with the police. Like you were saying, like some of these cops are not racist; they're just bad cops.
I think they get lazy. They get lazy, and I know this happened to me before because I used to get in trouble a lot, and they'd see me as a low-hanging fruit,
right?
And they'd be the person they come to first. And I can only imagine what happens in inner cities, etc., where they see guys that get a little bit of a rap sheet,
right?
And then they become the low-hanging fruit. Right. Oh, let's go check on this guy. I'm sure he's got something.
9 to 10 times, I'm going to find something.
And that's what they do to like maybe occupy themselves, and it's like that's the low-hanging fruit thing, and that's where it comes down to the bigger picture of. What are we doing this for? Are we doing this to reform people? Right. Are we doing it to help people?
Do you want to make this kid not do these things, or are you just trying to?
Right. And even judges, though, too, they've been caught before brokering teens to places. So it's like, those are the worst kinds of stories to me, because the judge is supposed to be the most respected authority figure of fairness and honesty there is. And yet here they are brokering kids to juvie. And it's like, that's just so terrible.
You hear this, that's crazy.
But it happens though too. And it's like, that's the kind of thing that's infuriating. And I think that's what a lot of people saw with this George Floyd case. They saw something that was really infuriating to see. Like I got mad watching it. And I think that's actually what probably helped me to change my viewpoint about it, is that I actually got really mad.
Right.
In other cases I've seen it, it just didn't touch me as much for whatever reason.
Right.
But like this one it did, so then I started thinking of it differently. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm starting to see now what they're all talking about. Right. And so I also wanted to ask you, what do you think the best things for white people in particular are to do? Like moving forward here, like and then that brings a big question, I know, but
yeah. But you know what's funny is it all starts from communication, and this is the kind of thing, and it doesn't need to be everything recorded, but the best thing I think a white person could do would be to step outside their comfort zone, sit down like this, and just maybe not over water, maybe it takes that comfort, maybe grab a beer, whatever, have a conversation with either somebody you know, or maybe somebody you kind of like a coworker. Be like, hey, listen, can we go after? I just want to talk with you and just kind of shit. Then guess what? It may not be everything you want to hear, but at least you're gonna get a perspective that's gonna open your eyes. Like there's things that my white friends say, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, listen, I may not agree with it. Like I know we were talking. I know we both know Rocco. Like. People see me and Rocco interact on social media, and they assume I have people, why are you even friends with this guy, and this, that, and the third. It was like, we give each other perspective. And when I see him, he's not disrespectful towards me. He's not like this. He just views politics, life, other interactions differently. He doesn't go out here and say, all black people are this. He's never, I've known this guy probably 10, 12 years. He's never once called me a racial slur. He's never once been disrespectful to me. You know, he may call me a dickhead a couple times on Facebook because we don't agree, but the exception that so I think people are too quick to go, he said this. I don't agree with him. He's racist.
Right.
And I think white people are too quick to go, oh, he said riots were cool. Oh, he's
they get caught up in the
right.
Not the point. And you're right, both sides do this. I was getting it today from a woman that was telling me that, I need to practice race humility because I mentioned everyone can do better and
I never
can
heard
of
race humility. I understand it, but that's...
And maybe you can tell me how I'm wrong because
humility.
A lot of them tell me that I'm just like out of my league and I shouldn't even be mentioning anything. I should stick to just telling white people what to do. And it was only because of like an after of the fact. I was telling them about the rioting and looting thing, how I think it's they're showing their actions, and I said, oh, and of course everyone can do better. And they go, oh, wait a minute, Jared, how can black people do better?
Right. Oh, that was a setup. Yeah,
and then
as soon as you said that, you should have been, no, I'm good.
And I should have just said nothing. But I opened my big mouth and I said a couple things, and I was just like, and then that's where I said, we can't talk to you anymore because we're not an ally with you.
So there's 3 T's. It was, I saw someone post this. It was, and this is how some things are successfully communicated and how they're not. When one of the 3 T's aren't practiced: tone, timing, and technique. And I had never heard it explained like this, but I loved it because I was like, I say this all the time, and I'm like, how you say what you say is just as important as what you say.
Absolutely.
So essentially, the time, and this is where I think you kind of got caught up, is that because of what's going on, there's no right thing you can. There's nothing you can say right now that doesn't agree with black people that's going to be accepted right now. That doesn't mean what you're saying is wrong.
It wasn't the time for it.
Right.
Just like it wasn't the time for Drew Brees to say that about the flag thing yesterday. He definitely should have just passed on the whole freaking question, right?
And so I explained this too. There was a group and a white person said something, and they were like, oh, what I'm saying is true, and I'm like, all right. I tell them, so your mom dies on Wednesday. I just don't. And I said, if I come to you on Thursday when you're mourning and say, 100 other moms died yesterday.
Yeah,
it's
a good way to think of it.
Right. Guess what? Is it true? Sure. I'm still a dickhead for saying it.
Yes.
So that's the timing thing. The technique is like the words you use. And so like if I'm like hey, George Floyd died, I'm like, hey, there was an incident in Minnesota. Like you said, like, oh, like an incident. Like, no, it wasn't an incident. Somebody was murdered.
Right.
Now, there's some people even using even worse, like, so I said, like, there was an incident, but look at all these riots.
Right.
So, like, the technique is garbage because,
You see a lot of people doing it. A lot of Republicans and conservatives doing that side of it, and they'll also say anything just to not have to do something themselves. Right. They don't want to take a look at their side of the street. They want to say, oh, that's a black community problem. Up, they're rioting and looting, so who cares now? Up, they hurt innocent people, and they ruin some small businesses. And don't get me wrong, I get it if a small business owner had her business destroyed or her business destroyed. Yeah, of course they should be mad. But like for all those of us looking in on it, it's like, I think it's best to see the bigger picture.
Right. And so that's the whole technique. Like George Floyd was bad, but that's his bad technique. And then the tone, which ironically, I feel like that there's no good tone. That's like, this is just so like on both sides. Yes. So like if I come like, so my tone, this is I'm calm, I'm like, hey, listen, I think that there was a black man that was innocent and even if he was committing forgery, I don't think he deserved to die. So the looting's okay. So even saying it in that tone, like it's a calm tone, it's a logical tone. There's the person's gonna hear looting's okay, right. And it's not gonna. So sadly, then this is to answer your question. I don't think as a white person right now you can win, and I think that sometimes like it's going back to it's funny is that being married has prepared me for a lot of interactions. Like there's certain times where you just gotta shut up because
it's very true.
It's just there's not a good time. No matter how you say it ain't gonna go over right. You just shut up. Because as a white person right now, your tone is going to be misconstrued, and the timing is most definitely going to be bad.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And it's not to say that anything that some of the stuff is bad, but it's not to say that everything they're saying doesn't have merit.
Right.
Because there's some stuff I agree with. Like, I black people don't want to hear this, but guess what? As much, like, again, it goes back to the whole, I ain't saying I would have did it, but I understand you're never going to get me to openly go, you know what? I support that looting. I'm going to go, I understand why this group of people felt like that was their only out. But that don't mean like you could, like, yo, we want to, nah, that's you. So I'm not judging you. But at the same time, I'm not going to go co-sign and be like, yeah.
Now, some people, though, I know would say to you, they would say, you're just trying to suck up to us white people so that we like you. And you're trying to get in good with the power group.
Right.
And that's exactly what I've heard.
Yep.
So
Oh,
what would you say to those people?
Truth hurts. Like, they don't want to hear it. Listen, but anybody that knows me and sees what I put out there, I am more vocal than the average person with how I feel about how police handle things, about systematic racism. I'm the guy that's saying more than, unless you're like, Jesse, or you're somebody, you're not saying more than me. You may be saying as much,
Right.
But so for someone to try to nitpick and I take, I know my wife says, oh, you love to beat, and I'm like, I do, because it's stimulating. But it seems if someone that was black tried to come and say, oh, see this, this is sucker stuff, or oh, that's you a house dance, or that,
Right.
they didn't let. I'm like, what are you doing? I'll be real quick. I'll flip it. Like, okay, so please explain to me what you're doing to help out, because I can tell you what I've done today,
Right.
yesterday, this week, to help out black people. I know I had a young brother come into my work today, and he was going through a tough time. He just had a baby, and he's dealing with a lot. He had a car that it's a piece, and this guy has to now support his child, his girl. I'm gonna help him out in however way I can, without compromising on my job and anything like that. But I'm going to help him out. So I'm supporting another brother being better, so he doesn't end up. Because guess what? If he can't fix his car because the bill's too high, he may go try now have to get that money another way, and may not be as
Right.
on the up and up. So like, I'm not saying that makes me like, I'm not some kind of hero or whatever, but I give back to the people in my community and the people around me to make them better in my own way on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think it's great for individuals
Right.
of every race to try to do their part to make this country the best country it can be.
Right.
And going back to your 3 T's, I think a lot of it's like the attitude we come into these conversations with. Are we trying to win the conversation,
Right.
or get a leg up, or are we truly trying to understand each other? And I try to kind of bring like the self-help world into the
Right.
political sphere, the social issue sphere,
Mhm.
because I feel like that's really where it's most needed right now.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and etc. who are they're just doing fine.
Right.
They're doing good. But in the social issue sphere, I think it's important to kind of bring some of that. And that's like it's a toxic attitude to want to win.
Yeah.
And when I see a lot of Republicans and conservatives, they'll try to just deflect anything off the point of just not having to do something themselves. So you'll see
Right.
things like fatherless households this, or what else? They're black on black crime that, or just anything to deflect from racism,
Right.
anything to deflect from white people actually having to do something different, is
Right.
what it seems like. And
They
like,
say numbers don't lie, but it's like, but you can manipulate.
it's the intention they're being used
Right.
with. It's like, I don't mind like that is the truth. I can mind that what it's trying to deflect from. Because this is like, to me, there is no reason to not want to help. There's no reason to like, unless you don't care. And that's the thing. And a lot of people don't care, and their actions are showing that they don't care. And I think, after this incident with George Floyd here, I think there's kind of like more of a dividing line now than ever of people like who get it, and then people who don't get it. And I think if you don't get it now after just what happened, I don't know if they'll ever get it.
You either aren't going to get it or you don't want to get it.
I think the second one probably for most of them, because people they're tied up in their ego investment of what side they've gone on. And I think the biggest dupe that Democrats and Republicans both are putting on us right now is to not think about rich versus poor, and instead think of anything else but that. But there's actually a lot of commonalities amongst whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, but poor.
Right.
And there's a lot of discrimination against poor.
Your financial status is more common with people. Your financial status makes you more in common with people than your skin color. Because I have black friends that I don't relate with on any level. Like, they want to sit around. Now, again, I'm not judging anybody. Like, they're in a different lane. They're doing their own thing. I got black friends that they don't work.
Right.
They want to smoke weed all day. They have no ambition.
Do they give you shit for how you live now at all?
Not really, because everybody that knows me knows that it's like, it wasn't like, oh, my mom didn't leave me thousands of dollars
right.
to do this, but at this, and I don't look at myself as above these people. I just make different choices. At the same time, I know white people that are doing the same thing as those people.
Yeah.
So I got black friends that are doing the same as me. My best friend is a business owner. He's a hustler. He's a father. He's a homeowner, and he's black. I got white friends that are doing the same thing. So, like, with my group, we've called us the crew for years. We used to go out clubbing and whatever. Now our focus is fatherhood, home ownership, entrepreneurial, type mindset. We evolved together and we stayed friends. And ironic, as crazy as this, we stayed friends because financially we stayed in the same lane. If one of us would have become a millionaire, it's sad, he probably would not be friends with us anymore because we wouldn't be able to relate to him.
Right.
And people don't want to hear that, but that's the truth.
It is, yeah.
Millionaires don't hang out and befriend hundredaires. And, hundredaires are not going to be able to relate to somebody. Like, if you were struggling to pay for bread and you have a friend that has their own home, they're saving, they want to, take trips and stuff like that. Not saying you can't be cool, you can't talk, but guess what? When, like, certain things come up, like, things that I deal with in life, I'm thinking about, I want to try to save up, and be able to save for my kids to go to college. I want to fix my pain in the ass fence so it doesn't fall down. Like, if you're trying to figure out how to feed your family the next week, we're not going to be able to relate on the struggles we're talking about on a daily basis. That doesn't mean we can't be cool. That doesn't mean we can't help each other out. It doesn't mean we can't still be black and
right.
support each other. But at the end of the day, if you can't relate with somebody's, and my wife, when she didn't have a child, couldn't relate the same way to her other friends that had multiple children.
Very true.
And they weren't even in a different financial state. It was just that. So what you deal with on a day-to-day basis affects more how you interact and relate to people than your color of your skin. Like, if you're purple and you're dealing with the same stuff I'm dealing with, and we can relate and have a beer, whatever, we cool. I don't care. Now, if you're, and this is nothing against those people, but again, I'm not judging them, but it's, you surround yourself with what you want to be. Now, if someone's just smoking weed all day and they don't have a job, they're not looking, they want to do illegal activities, I'm not your guy. I'm not knocking you, but we're not going to be hanging out on Saturdays, Sundays. I'm not going to bring you around my family. I'm not going to come to your area and put myself in that situation, because that's not what I'm trying to be about. Again, now I don't judge that person, and we can be cool in another environment, but in real world, and what really matters, your family, your job, your life, all that.
Right.
It ain't gonna work.
Do you think it's a thing at all? Like the kind of pressures that young black men may get in Camden, Philadelphia, etc. If they try to be good and be labeled as square, do you think that's a thing at all? Or
so, the thing that irks me the most is that if you talk proper, and this has always been a pet peeve. If you talk proper, you talk white.
That's as well, yes.
Right. So if I consider myself an articulate individual. So if someone hears me like, oh yeah, man, he's white. He talks white. I'm like, literally, my dad is fresh off the boat. He was born in Ghana. My mom is from Northeast Philly. They're probably some of the blackest people.
Right.
And I am like my dad, and I'm like my mom. And if you catch me talking to either one of them, the two peas in a pot. But because I don't talk like someone that's uneducated, I'm automatically talking white, and that's a stigma that I've seen like probably my whole life, and I don't really care. I would rather be labeled as talking white than to appease my peers and talk uneducated. I would much rather show them, like, guess what? You can be, there's nobody more dark-skinned than me, so guess what? You can be as black as you want and talk educated. I would more rather bring my friends to, not where I'm at to say like I'm above them, but like I would bring them into the light, would be a better way. So I'd rather educate my friends on how they can be better men than to adhere to a cultural misconception that that's the only way that we can be black. So
I was right about to ask you, like, what's the best way to dispel that and to kind of convince them that it's a good thing to strive for. It's not like something to be looked down upon at all. And then again, I'm in the middle of reading Obama's first book right now too, and they said there's a lot of people of color who will, like I said to you earlier, is like if you try to act white or talk white, it's like you're just kissing their ass. And you're trying just to blend in, you're trying just to suck up to the power group kind of thing again. But like behind closed doors, they would have their own conversations. Oh, could you imagine what we had to say to that white guy there?
Right.
Can you believe that? He didn't believe it when we said this shit or whatever.
So I'll say it like this, is that if people want to conform, they're going to always find a way to lose part of themselves to conform. Like, I can't be me and totally drop my sarcastic, dickhead humor at times to fit into a group just because they want everyone to act this way. You know, like a perfect example, like one of the hobbies I'm into is football. So, you know, I don't mince words or try to act like it's, we're going to become an NFL team or whatever, but I'm a head coach and an owner of a semi-professional football team. So my team, I run my team a certain way. That's actually our old logo. And I go out of my way to be me. And there's plenty of people that go, oh man, Slip's being, this, he's not doing it the right way. But yet, year after year, the team grows. Year after year, the team gets better, more advanced. And I have people that have been in this avenue for years that tell me, like, that you're doing a good thing. So that matters to me more than the people that are telling me, oh, you're not supposed to do it this way. It's like, I don't really care. I'm not trying to do it your way. I'm trying to do it right my way.
Exactly.
If I failed and I did it my way, I can live with that.
I think part of the self-help world also is what they'd say integrating the shadow, integrating the dark side of your personality into your everyday life. And I think that's something that, everyone should be doing. So like you're in the streets and you're like afraid to give up that part of yourself because you don't want to conform or whatever it is. It's like there's a way to integrate that somehow. And I think for it to actually be successful, and there has been plenty of examples of it, but I think it's just like you gotta maybe use your head, and everyone has to use their head to like find the way that works for them, so they can keep that edge.
Right.
So that I used to struggle with this myself. It's like I got to keep my edge somehow, but then put it towards something useful today, like something that works for the real world. That's not going to land me in jail, right? And I think it's a struggle for a lot of young men in particular, that they just don't know how to do that without being a sellout, without being. If it was a black person, not acting too white, but it's like, how do you keep it real and integrate it? And I think that's the $1 million question for a lot of people. Yeah.
Stuff.
Absolutely. So, is there anything else you wanted to mention about any of the things that we talked about so far?
I think we covered a lot of bases. I was actually real, not surprised, but I was real pleased at how smooth that we were able to communicate what we were trying to get across. Because I feel like, I feel like you are most white people, and not to say that you're a regular white person, trying to make you a basic, but just that I don't think that most white people are racist. I think that most white people are unaware of how to communicate how they feel because they're afraid of being labeled racist. But I think that the problem is that white people, and this is to kind of answer kind of what you asked before, I think that white people have to understand that and accept the fact that being racist is worse than being labeled racist. I feel like white people fear more being called racist than
makes sense.
actually being racist. You know, like I think that if 7 of your black friends on Facebook said you're racist, that would bother you more than if not saying you, but I'm saying like the average white American called a black person the N-word. You know,
that's a really good point.
So I'm saying, like, white people have to accept the fact that being racist is worse than being called racist. Like, it's not just some label so you can be publicly one way. Like, racism has to be looked at the same way as being called racist is, or it's never going to change.
That's a really good point, actually. And I think one more thing we'll touch on here before we end this is that place I've struggled is, like, years ago in my mid-20s, I had many black mentors that were older than me, like 50, 60 years old, and like I really identified with them, and they really helped me out in a lot of different ways. And then, like, slowly but surely, they gravitated out of my life, etc., because my life just happens and friends come and go. But recently, more of my struggle has been, like, there's so much emphasis on race right now, so much emphasis on systemic racism and implicit bias and all of those things, that I think it's, like, made it more awkward for me. Where, like, I didn't see color at first before. I didn't see it. I didn't think of race. I just thought, this is a cool guy I know. But now that I'm more aware and I kind of know more of what's going on, and this is my own shit, but it makes it more awkward for me, or, like, it just doesn't seem as natural or something, and, like, I'm not sure if maybe that's something other people struggle with too, like me. But it's like,
I think that what you're doing is good, though. I think that people being able to see this and kind of hear the perspectives will open up more people's minds to think, I'm not crazy because I agree with some of the stuff they're saying. They don't need to agree with all of it, but even if it's like, wow, I never thought about that, or it's like, hey, yeah, that's why. Like, I think that will just open up the ability for dialogue, which we go back to is the only way.
Huge. You gotta have that dialogue. I mean, it has to be with the right intentions too, understanding, not just to win.
You got to come to the table to break bread and not to, like you said, to win.
It's what's needed right now, especially right now more than ever. And I guess I would just encourage everyone to hopefully not go too tribal, and, like, if someone doesn't agree with everything you say, don't shun them out completely, but try just to, like, just talk. And so it's okay to disagree about some things, I think. And I think that's another thing a lot of people forget. But that was a really good point you made about they're more afraid of being called racist than actually being racist. I've never thought of it that way before, but I think that's really good. So, any other closing thoughts, man? All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Definitely a pleasure having you on.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, man. This is awesome.
And any comments below, I'd definitely like to hear what you guys had to think about this. And I don't know, and maybe encourage everyone to also do more of the same. Talk to people that are different than you with an open mind, to try to be understanding and see where it goes. So with that, thanks for watching. Over and out.
That was good.
I think so.